Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Mendoza, and I am the ESL Program Specialist for Salinas Adult School, as well as professional expert for Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium. So the presentation that just happened was in Spanish. This next presentation will be in English. La presentación que acabo de pasar, o la otra grabación es en español. Esta grabación será en inglés. This presentation will be in English. Again, we are part of Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium, and today we are here with two attorneys. But before we do that, let me first introduce the adult schools that Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium represents. We currently represent 7 adult schools here in Monterey County, and of course, we encourage you to reach out to the adult school near you. The state of California is really wonderful at providing free education for adults, and so we encourage you to seek the school near you. Of course, this is also this project is was organized and was inspired by the Salinas Valley Adult Education Student Council, who informed us that there was a huge need for this service, and so therefore we were blessed enough to have 2 attorneys join us and help support us. Of course, we have special projects like Entrepreneur of the Month, where our students that have businesses who are entrepreneurs, we celebrate them. And of course, today we are here with Attorney Armida Mendoza and Lorena Vargas. Armida Mendoza last year received an award from United Way, which is an organization, a state-funded organization here in our valley, in Monterey, for giving over 300 free immigration consultations in just a few months. And so therefore this year, we will break that record, I'm sure, multiple times, since we have 2 attorneys, both Lorena Vargas and Attorney Armida Mendoza, are with us and are with us on a monthly basis, giving free consultations online. So that way we are providing the service not only for Monterey County residents, but also for anyone in the state of California. Of course, we have other special project is Ven al Café con Pan, where we do different presentations. Today, we're going to be speaking about Hablemos. We're going to be Citizenship with Immigration Attorney Armida Mendoza and Lorena Vargas. And of course, thank you again for being here with us. And this is, of course, part of Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium, who we are very blessed again to be working with both attorneys. So let me stop sharing our screen. And of course, we are ready to start, attorneys.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Gracias a todos por estar aquí. My name is Lorena Vargas. I'm an immigration attorney. I am here with my good friend Armida Mendoza, an attorney also as well. Today, we're going to talk to you about the naturalization process. It's a very important process for many immigrants to finally reach that goal of becoming U.S. citizens, right? And we will go over the goals of why we want to become citizens, the new changes going on with citizenship, and the new exam. So we'll be going over those with you in detail so that you are ready and willing to file for those naturalization applications. A little bit about me, very briefly. My name is Lorena Vargas, as I mentioned before, an immigration attorney. I've been focusing on family immigration for over 20 years now. I started my experience and my work with immigrants many years ago, focusing on sexual assault victims. And from then on, I started moving into family petitions. And that includes a wide array of applications for family members petitioning for their relatives, including filing for citizenship or naturalization and focusing on humanitarian visas, such as the T visa, the U visa, or VAWA, and also representing immigrant youth seeking special immigrant juvenile status here in the state courts, and also before immigration. And now I want my friend Armida Mendoza to go ahead and introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Armida Mendoza. Like Lorena, I'm also an immigration attorney. I have been practicing for the last 12 years, initially as an accredited representative with various nonprofits here in the Central Valley, and now as my capacity as an attorney. I am currently participating in various projects that include giving pro bono consultations in collaboration with the Central Valley Immigrant Integration Collaborative, which is a collaborative of different organizations here in the Central Valley, more specifically in Fresno, and that aims at taking access to legal assistance or legal representation to rural areas, such as small towns that are surrounding the Central Valley. I am also a volunteer attorney with the Consulate of Mexico here in Fresno. And I serve as an attorney responder for the Valley Watch Network, which is Fresno Rapids Response. In my capacity in that is that I am part of the attorneys that are dispatched when someone is detained, and we try to go to the ICE office and try to provide some sort of legal assistance or orientation or consultation to the person being detained and trying to prevent their deportation. I'm also a volunteer attorney with the California Collaborative for Immigrant Justice, and I participate in the pro bono clinics at the two of the detention facilities here in the Central Valley, and I try to go as many times as I can during the year. My law office is located in Fresno, California. We currently take cases throughout the state and throughout the country, and the type of cases that we currently represent include family petitions, naturalization, DACA, waivers, U visas, VAWA, special immigrant juvenile status, as Lorena mentioned, consular processing. We also do interview representation, green card renewals, background checks, which Lorena will talk a little bit about what those are, and Freedom of Information Act requests with different DHS agencies, where we try to obtain pieces of a missing puzzle. You know, when someone has had certain encounters with different either Customs Border Patrol, with ICE, or at any point had any case at the immigration courts, we're able to request those records to assist evaluating their cases before they file anything, or to kind of see what where the case is at. I also offer some limited scope representation and removal cases. And so that's a little bit about myself. I am proud to be here and participating in this project. And I will now pass the word onward to Lorena.
So let's go over some reasons why people want to naturalize. These are the highlights, right? What do U.S. citizens have? You know, they have the right to vote in elections. Voting in an election gives you so much power to elect representatives or public officials that are going to represent you, right? So now more than ever, we want to make sure that our voice is heard. So having the right to vote is crucial in these times. So becoming a citizen gives you that right. As a legal permanent resident, you don't have the right to vote in U.S. elections, whether it's in local elections, state elections, or in our nationwide elections. Being a U.S. citizen, also, you have the right to hold public office. You know, many of our elected officials right now were once either teachers, were coaches, were I read earlier this week that an elected official used to be an airline stewardess. So there are many backgrounds, many people who come into office, right? And they represent their elected constituents. So you can also hold federal and state government jobs. A U.S. citizen can also petition for family members through the immigration system. And sometimes that's even faster than a legal permanent resident can. For instance, some waiting lists are shorter if a U.S. citizen petitions. Also, some eligibility requirements for beneficiaries are waived or are waivable for family members of U.S. citizens and not for family members of lawful permanent residents. Minors, so minor children that are lawful permanent residents, will automatically derive citizenship when their parent naturalizes. Okay, that's a huge benefit because you're helping those minor children become citizens, you know, at a young age and not having to renew that legal permanent resident card, right? Also, U.S. citizens cannot be denied entry into, nor can they be deported from the U.S. I know a lot of stuff has been going on in the news about citizens being detained, but remember, U.S. citizens cannot be removed. So it's very important now more than ever to become a citizen if you're eligible. Generally, U.S. citizens can leave the U.S. and they can also live in another country for as long as they want. Many U.S. citizens work remotely from other countries. Years later, they come back, return to the U.S. Legal permanent residents, they have to be renewing their green card every 10 years. However, U.S. citizens, once you become a citizen through naturalization, you don't have to be renewing that, right? So these are some of the important reasons why we may want to seek that naturalization application and file and become a U.S. citizen. Now, let's go over the general requirements. An applicant must be at least 18 years old, okay? You must have residence. You had to have been a permanent resident of the United States for the last 5 years, or you had to have been married and living with a U.S. citizen spouse for the last 3 years, and your spouse has been a U.S. citizen for at least the last 3 years. Okay. You also must show that you have continuous residence, meaning you have continuously lived in the United States for at least 5 years. Physical presence. You must show that you have been physically present in the United States for at least half of that 5-year period. And this goes into the travel. And we'll dissect this a little bit more in a few slides, but this has to do with people travel, okay? You must also be able to read, write, or speak basic English. You have to have a basic understanding of U.S. history and government, and you must establish good moral character. This means having good moral character is not having any problems with the police or other authorities, and this we will dig into a lot more in a couple of slides. And lastly, you must have give or take that loyalty oath and support the Constitution and form of government. This is your oath, your promise that you will be a faithful and loyal U.S. citizen to the U.S. Constitution and the form of government that we have here in the U.S. So before we get to the nitty-gritty, there are some updates. The new naturalization test will apply to all applications, okay? Applications submitted on or after October 20th of 2025. So some of the changes is that the number of questions has been they've increased them from 100 to 120. During the exam, the USCIS officer will ask the applicant up to 20 questions. And this is the civics part, okay? The U.S. history, the government, how it's structured. Those questions, and the applicant must answer 12 of them correctly. This is an increase from the current exam, in which the applicant is asked up to 10 questions, and they must answer 6 of them correctly. So most times during the interview, questions are being asked, right? They will go through the entire exam, the entire application, all the questions. Once they're done with that, they will go through these questions regarding the civics, the ones that you study in a lot of civics classrooms. And they'll start asking questions. Most times when you hit the 5th or 6th question, they'll stop because the officers already recognize, oh, this person studied, they have 6 correct, and then that's it. Now they're increasing that to, they can ask up to 20 questions. Okay, so this is some change. And again, they're increasing 20 more new questions to the exam. Now, good moral character. The requirement for good moral character means that you have not done certain things the government considers bad. Okay, the application will ask you questions about things that will disqualify you. All those questions in there, they're there for a reason. They're there to see if they're going to answer yes. And if you answer yes, it's like a little red flag coming along for them. This is where they're going to start asking more questions, right? They're going to ask about your criminal history, especially drug crimes or drug arrests or crimes that show you are dishonest, being a drunkard or a gambler, or making a living off of prostitution or seeking prostitution, participating in terrorism or persecution of others, or lying to get immigration benefits, or helping people cross the border. These are just some of the most common, some of the most heavily weighted questions, but these are not all. Other important things that USCIS will consider or will look into is if you have failed to support your children. not paying child support, failing to file income tax returns, or lying to receive or continue to receive welfare or other public benefits, or even lying in a prior application to receive the status that you have now. So they're looking back, they're being very thorough, because again, we're in a different environment now, a different administration, and it's not about really getting people to become citizens, but that's why we need to do a thorough review for those who are applicable to be able to pass this good moral character requirement. Now, on August 15th of this year, new changes were implemented. And these changes impact the good moral character requirement of the application. USCIS officers are now under a new directive on how they will decide if an applicant meets this requirement. So USCIS will place greater emphasis on an alien's positive attributes and contributions to this requirement. These positive factors include, but are not limited to, the person's community involvement and contributions in the U.S., family caregiving responsibilities and ties to the U.S., educational attainment, if you've had stable and lawful employment history and achievements, length of lawful residence in the United States, or if you've complied with your tax obligations and financial responsibility, such as paying your taxes, paying your child support. Now, I want to pause here for a second, because I'm talking about they're putting an emphasis on an alien's positive attributes. This means that they didn't have this before. Before, the good moral character was, as long as you don't have anything on your record, you're good, because you don't have no crimes, you don't have no convictions, you haven't done anything wrong, right? Anything wrong with criminal related. So, or even you've paid all your taxes, you're up to with your child support. Now they're asking, well, prove to us that you're a person that should merit or should get this citizenship, right? So prove that you're a good member of your community. And they're asking for this now. We don't have a clear directive as to what exactly they're asking for, but this is something new. And this is something we all need to start preparing. So if you volunteer for your community church or a community organization, or you help at your child's school, and get those letters of recommendation, get those certificates that you're being actively involved, because this can help support this requirement. As I mentioned, criminal acts. USCIS will also focus greater attention on whether an applicant has engaged in any behavior or act that disqualifies them from being found to be a person of good moral character. The new directive gives officers greater authority to make a determination if the person meets the good moral character requirement. Now, as my good friend Armida mentioned earlier in the Spanish presentation, this section is very, very important, okay? Because whereas before you have to prove a conviction, right? A conviction is what? Somebody has done something wrong, right? An act. Like, let's say I was driving down the street and I had too many beers or too much alcohol in my system, and I was driving. That's a violation of a criminal law, right? Criminal section. I get arrested, then I am sent to jail, and then I get sent to the judge, and the judge finds that, yes, I did violate this, and now they're going to punish me. Now I'm convicted, right? So I went through this whole legal system, and they found that, yes, I violated this rule, and now I'm convicted, okay? Now that I have this conviction, it can prevent me from this good moral character. That's still true. The difference is that now any act or behavior, whether you've been convicted or not, can be considered, okay? Because it's giving the officers a greater authority to make this determination if the person meets that character requirement. For instance, controlled substance violations, 2 or more convictions for driving under the influence. And as my friend Armida mentioned earlier, there have been times we filed applications for naturalization for applicants who've had 2, 3, 4 DUIs, in their distant past, and they've been able to get it. It's been fine. But now they're allowed to deny if they had 2 or more convictions for driving under the influence, for false claims to U.S. citizenship, unlawful voter registration or unlawful voting. There are many times people don't understand the forms because it's either a different language, and they unintentionally, without intention, they register to vote, and sometimes they withdraw that application in a timeful manner. So there's a lot to go into this. It goes more into the legalese section, which is why it's so important to seek a consultation with a practicing attorney to get the proper advice. Now, any other acts that are contrary to the average behavior of citizens in the jurisdiction where aliens reside. This means that this could be any action that, while technically they're lawful, it could be considered inconsistent with a civic responsibility within the community, such as reckless or habitual traffic infractions. So let's say you've always getting a traffic ticket because you're running a stop sign near a school, or just running a stop sign, right? If you have so many of these can be considered enough to weigh against you for this good moral character requirement. So it's important to consult an attorney because you need to make sure that your history is good and clean so that you qualify, and you should be able to become a citizen as soon as possible. Now, you may have something in your past. That doesn't mean that that automatically disqualifies you. So if there is something, let's show genuine rehabilitation and to support a finding of good moral character. So let's say I did have a DUI and I had 3 speeding tickets, right? 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago. But let's say I've been volunteering, right, in my community. I've been volunteering in different organizations, or I'm showing that I've rehabilitated. I don't have anything anymore, right? So rectifying that behavior goes a long way. Some of the things that people can also use is like if you have overdue child support payments or other family obligations, pay those off. Show that you are now up to date, or you've paid off that child support, that alimony, whatever it is. Compliance with probation or other conditions imposed by a court. If you're on probation, make sure you complete it. Make sure you don't violate probation. You also can do community testimony from credible sources attesting to the person's ongoing good moral character. So maybe the principal of your child's school knows you pretty well, knows how you're contributing or helping there. Get a letter from them. Also, reformation or mentoring those with similar past. Full repayment of overpayment of benefits such as Social Security, or full payment of overdue taxes. So anything you owe, pay those debts off. Clearing out traffic tickets, clearing out overdue taxes, child support. Those are very, very important.
Attorney, I'm thinking attending adult schools and getting letters from the adult schools is also, or learning English, certifications, things like that as well are helpful, correct?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I've been mentioning this myself, is going to school, right? You're improving yourself. If you improve yourself, you're improving your community, right? Whether you're taking a class, a gardening class, whether you're taking an English class, whether you're taking a government civics class, whatever it is that you're doing, you're improving yourself, and ultimately it's improvement for your community. Get those letters from staff members, from your teachers, your transcripts, certificates that you receive. All of that shows all these past positive attributes that are favorable to you for this requirement. Now, there has been a memo that was published on August 22nd, 2025, where USCIS prescribes that neighborhood visits would be used to investigate applicants for naturalization. Okay, and this is to dive deep down into the applicant's application. Okay, the memo suggests that USCIS may request additional information from naturalization applicants, okay, such as testimonial letters from neighbors, employers, co-workers, and business associates. It states that if such evidence is not contained in the application, USCIS may request further evidence, okay? The decision whether to conduct a neighborhood investigation will be based on evidence presented, and an applicant's failure or refusal to provide such evidence may lead to a neighborhood investigation, which may impact an applicant's ability to establish their eligibility for naturalization. Now, this the statute, the regulations, and USCIS policy manual have not changed, okay? And until there are some clear instructions from USCIS, applicants have no way of knowing what specifically is required. Now, again, they're putting these memos, these directives, but how it's going to be evaluated, how it's going to get put into practice, that is still vague, right? Now, as my friend Armida mentioned earlier, this is something that has been going on for a while. And USCIS or immigration, they had tested this out earlier, like several years ago, several decades ago. And the reason they didn't continue with it is because it's very costly. You know, many of us think that the US government has so many resources. And as we've learned in the last few months, resources are being cut left and right. So that also means that they don't have that many people going to be able to investigate. This is still, we're still waiting to see how this is going to happen, if it does happen. But just be aware, that this is their intent right now. As more information comes out, we will be continuing giving in presentations and information so that you are prepared during when you apply for naturalization. The other requirement is proving physical and continuous presence. You must have resided in the U.S. for at least 5 years, lived in the state that you are applying from for at least 3 months. Okay. You must have actually been physically in the United States for at least half of the 5-year period requirement. If you have trips outside of the United States for more than 6 months, you will have to wait to apply. Now, I mentioned this earlier. It's very important, this continuous residence requirement and physical presence, because many of us have relatives, have neighbors that, they want to go back to their native country. They want to go back to visit relatives, family, or to go on vacation. I've known people who want to, go on vacation and work remotely. You can leave the US, but you must prove that you've been physically and continuously present in the United States. Remember, as a legal permanent resident, you're saying and you're promising to live here permanently. That doesn't mean taking off, to work, let's say in Colombia for 7 months, and then being like, oh, okay, now I can come back to the US. I came back for 2 months. Now I have to go back for another 3 months. It doesn't work that way. And immigration will ask your immigration history, because in that immigration history, they're going to ask for the last 5 years. They're checking to see how many trips you've taken, for how long, to confirm if you've been out of the country for more time than you've actually been physically present. Okay. I've known people who've gotten their residency card, are here for 2 months, leave for 5 months, come back for a month, and leave for another 4 months. And it's like, wait a minute, you've only been here for like 3 months for your residency, and you've been out for over 10 months, right? When immigration sees that, or sees large periods of travel abroad, they consider that abandonment. And you do not want to abandon your residency, because then you have to start all over again. And many of you know that this is very difficult just to get the residency part. Okay. So it's very important to keep track of all your travel abroad, the dates, the time, the length, because you will be asked. Now, the other part is the English and civics exam. You must be able to have simple conversation in English. During your interview, the officer will ask you the questions on your exam, and will also ask you up to 20 questions from U.S. history and government that you will be studying during the next few months. So if you're taking civics classes at your adult school, keep doing that. You will be tested up to 20 of those questions. Now, there are some waivers of the English requirement. So some legal permanent residents, when they apply, they can take the exam in their language. One, if you are 55 years old or older, and you've had your legal permanent resident card for 15 years, you could be eligible for that exemption. Also, if you're 50 years old or older and have had your green card for 20 years, okay? Another one is if you are 65 or older and you've had it for 20 years, you can be given a shorter exam. Okay, it's up to 20 questions. So the other thing is, if you have a mental or physical disability that makes you unable to learn English or pass the exam, or it's not so much just the exam, but unable to learn, right? Anything. You can apply for a waiver for both the English portion and for the U.S. History and Civics exam. Now, please keep in mind right now, the 2025 revisions create new challenges for naturalization applicants seeking medical disability exemptions from the English and civics requirements. Right now, it's going through a period of review, and they want to make it harder. Anybody who submits a waiver for this mental or physical disability waiver, USCIS is even looking to see if the doctor who filled it out, if that doctor is always submitting these types of waivers for many people, that's raising a red flag for people for USCIS. Okay, many times people say, "Oh, I can't learn anything. Oh, it doesn't stick." One thing is not willing to, okay, and another thing is not having the ability to actually learn. For whatever reason. But the doctor will now be required to give a diagnosis as to why that person can't learn it. So we have to really be cautious here. Applicants for naturalization could end up in deportation proceedings and being deported from the United States if information on the application leads immigration to know that they are removable. So this has always been the case, but now more than ever, since February, this administration has now given more direct guidance to officers if they deny an application to refer them to deportation proceedings or removal proceedings, okay? Which is why it's so critical now more than ever to seek a consultation with an attorney to know for sure if you will be eligible or if not. And if you're not, why? And is there something you can do to make yourself eligible, right? USCIS asks questions about removability, which we call deportation, right, on the application. Like I mentioned earlier, all those questions that they ask are just little symbols for them to see. If you answer yes, it's a little red flag that goes on so that they can pay more attention to that and dig more into that question. So it's especially important that the person is honest in filling out their applications. The applicant could be deportable for breaking immigration laws, for having convictions for certain crimes, as we mentioned earlier, or for abandoning the residence, as I mentioned just shortly, right? So it's very important that you do seek an immigration consultation so that you know if you qualify and have all your information ready. Now, the filing fees for naturalization, there's a general filing fee of $760 if you follow the paper format. If you do it online, it's $710. Now, there are certain individuals who will qualify for a fee waiver or a reduced fee. If you can show and demonstrate that your household makes a certain amount of money, then you may qualify for the fee waiver and the fee is completely covered, right? It's waived. However, if you don't qualify for that category because you make a little bit more than that, but you still don't make over 400% of the federal poverty guidelines, then you can ask for a reduced fee, okay? And then you'll get the reduced fee. And here are some of the information right now, just breaking it down. Now, something that's very important, and many times, people don't know this, is that men born after 1960 and have lived in the United States from the ages of 18 and 26 years old had to have registered for the select services, okay? Now think about this. How many people enter the United States, okay? I'm not saying legally or illegally, just enter the United States and think, oh, I'm 20 years old. I need to go register for select services. They don't, because they don't know, right? It's not like it's, something that's always shared and publicly provided for people to know. So this includes U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, asylees, parolees, or undocumented immigrants who are in the United States. They had to have registered, Okay, so even if you do not have status, you have to register if you're between the ages of 18 and 26. If you're a legal permanent resident and you're between the ages of 18 and 26, you must register. Okay, so failure to register, let's say, and you're now over 26 years old, it's not mandatory that you register anymore, but you must now prove or show why you didn't register. And many times people will say, I had no idea I had to register, but if I could, I'll register, right? It's just giving a simple explanation and being honest. It goes back to that honesty, issue, being honest with immigration, and most likely they'll just go ahead and waive that. Now, let's go over some red problems or red flag problems. Some of these will be repeated from previous slides. You made trips out of the United States for more than 6 months. That's a red flag. You moved to another country since getting your green card because now you're living permanently over there and not here, right? You are in deportation or removal proceedings or have ever been deported. That's going to be a red flag. Have you ever helped or provided support, including financial support, to a group that attacks others or attempted to overthrow another country's government? You ever failed to file federal, state, or local taxes, or you owe taxes? You haven't supported your children, or you owe child support. You are a male and did not register for the select services between 18 and 26. You are on probation or parole for a criminal conviction. These are all red flags. You have contradictory information on your application, okay? You lied or committed fraud to get your green card, or you weren't originally eligible for your green card when you got it. So, for instance, say you got your green card years ago, many years ago, let's say 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And when you got it, you relied on your petitioner, whether that was your parent or your spouse, to petition for you, and they filled out everything out. And you just signed the documents. If there was something wrong in that application and you shouldn't have gotten your green card, your permanent residency, immigration is now looking into all of that too. Okay, so as Attorney Mendoza mentioned earlier, it's important to get your background checks. It's important to get your files because you need to review what was said before because they're going back and looking into that. If you left the U.S. for 30 days or more while receiving public benefits, that's a red flag. Have you been arrested or convicted of a crime, or have you committed crimes? Have you lied, committed fraud to receive or continue to receive public benefits? Have you helped somebody enter the U.S. illegally, even if it's a relative? Have you ever claimed to be a U.S. citizen, but you weren't? Have you ever been charged or committed with committing domestic violence, child abuse, or child neglect? These are all red flags that you need to look out for. Now, have you ever voted illegally in the U.S. or registered to vote in the U.S. and weren't eligible to? Have you ever made a living by illegal gambling? Have you ever been involved in prostitution or procured the services of a prostitute? Have you been a habitual drunkard, a drug abuser, or a drug addict? And a lot of these are straight from the questions in the application, okay? And the application is designed in a way with legal terms that have certain meanings. Many times people will think, oh, I'll just have my son fill out my form. But the forms are more complicated than people may think. Habitual drunkard, I would ask if somebody would say, oh, yes. And I would ask why. And they say, oh, I'm a habitual drunkard. A habitual drunkard is a legal term, right? What that person thinks as a habitual drunkard may not be what the legal term is. So they're already answering wrong in a way that could damage and hurt them in this application, which is why it's important that you seek counsel from an attorney to review this critically. Now, a warning on marijuana. Even though marijuana is legal in some states like California, immigrants can face severe penalties, including denial of application, if they admit that they ever used it or if they admit that they worked in the marijuana industry. And remember, we're not lying, which means that we strongly suggest if anybody's working in that industry that they don't, because this is going to disqualify them. Okay. Now, I've been mentioning this all along, taking precautions. It's important if you disclose any encounters with the police or any type of issue with any government agency to your attorney representative. It's crucial. Attorneys are here to help you. They're like that barrier, right? What we want to do is we want to make sure, wait, let's make sure everything is correct. Let's make sure you're safe in filing, or that you know the risks and consequences of filing before you decide to do so, right? And how do we do this? We do these background checks. Background checks are so important because this is like the little lens for us to go back in time and see, well, let's do an FBI background check. You know, it's a simple little check that takes about a month. We get the results back. And what do we get? We get a screenshot of any arrests and convictions. The California Department of Justice live scan does the same for just the state of California. The FBI is nationwide, right? We also do FOIA background checks. A FOIA background check is the Freedom of Information Act. This is done with the federal government for different agencies. So we could do it with USCIS, right? If we want to see any application that was filed before, we want to see what was said in those applications. I once had a FOIA that was, I think, 3,000 pages, and I thought it was a nightmare because I thought I was never going to get through it. This person had filed, I think, every application that immigration has ever invented. They had so many applications, but I kept looking at it took me several weeks, but I kept looking to see if there was anything inconsistent. Why was it denied? What happened here? Well, what happened next? I went through like 30 years worth of this person filing with immigration. They paid so much money, but I kept looking and looking and looking, and I kept trying to find, is there anything inconsistent? You know, why did they deny the first one? Okay, I see it. It's fine. Why did they deny the next one? And the next one and the next one? This is why we do these background checks. We need to make sure that the information is consistent, that there's no information that's going to damage the next application that the person does. We do these background checks to confirm if there are any arrests. When you're arrested, it's very likely that the charge that is put there will most likely change into something different. So I could be arrested for a DUI and then later be convicted for a wet reckless, which is a very low type of DUI, but it doesn't register like a DUI, okay? I could be arrested for possibly domestic violence, and then later it gets reduced down to a simple battery or harassing somebody. Because when they look at the evidence and they see what actually happened, what the officer wrote is not what it is. The evidence shows that the person actually, you know, maybe I was just bothering somebody and they just called it something very simple. So it's very important to do this. Armida Mendoza and myself, we do these thorough checks to protect our clients. Now, the process. The time frame varies between USCIS district offices. Some offices I've heard some offices take about 4 months. Others are taking 6 months, and it always changing. So it's going to depend on where you live, how long the office that you pertain to, what jurisdiction you're part of, how long they will take. Once you file, you will have to attend a biometrics appointment, which is a fingerprint appointment with USCIS. And thereafter, you'll have the interview. You'll normally get about a month notice for your interview. Hopefully you didn't get any RFEs, you didn't get any notices asking for more information. Hopefully the next thing is just the interview notice. At the interview, the officer will go over all the questions on the application thoroughly, and then they'll do the civics and English exams. You will also, everything looks good, they'll either set you up for an oath ceremony, or some offices, they're doing oath ceremonies there right then and there, and then they'll put you under oath. And actually, before you finish, you do have to sign the application and you take the oath. And that's where anything you have said during your interview can be used against you. Okay, so it's important that you prepare for that interview, that you review your application in full, that you know what you've said before. You know, as long as we're being honest, we should not have any trouble. The only thing is sometimes people get nervous, and that's normal, right? But other than that, everything should be good. Once everything is done, and if the officer determines that you did pass this exam, they'll put you under oath, you'll sign, okay? Before you sign, okay? It's important that you review any changes that were made during the application. A couple of months ago, I had a client who went to her interview, and the officer kept saying that there was a miscommunication. The officer kept saying that, kept asking her a question whether she ever objected to somebody exercising their religious freedom, practicing their religion, right? And she said no. And the officer said that she said yes. And she kept saying no. So they kept going back and forth. It finally stopped. And then the officer said, I want you to sign here. And she said no, because I did not say that. I asked you to repeat it. I didn't say that. Now, my client's English, she has a heavy accent, and the officer has a heavy accent. I could see why there was some maybe miscommunication, but we stopped the interview, and they scheduled her for another interview. At the second interview, she passed. It was fine, right? But it's very important to review any changes that are made in the application, that they are correct, because once you sign, you're affirming that everything, that the new changes are true and correct. And officers are people just like us, and we make mistakes. So we want to make sure that their mistakes are corrected, and only things that are true are signed off on. Okay. Now, that's why it's so important to be accompanied by an attorney or an accredited representative, because oftentimes, we're going to also want to make sure that everything is fine and everything is done correctly. And even when there's miscommunications, we'll sometimes intercede to make sure that things are cleared, and people are not under different assumptions. Now, it's so important to be aware of immigration scams. Now more than ever, many notarios or notary offices are popping up, or have been in existence, but are maybe promoting their services more. Even tax preparers to promote immigration services. You need to be aware these are all scams. They do not have a license to practice and give legal advice. And most of these questions, all of immigration is law. That means they would be giving legal advice if they start practicing. And many of them are practicing, and that's a violation of California law. So stop. Despite the excitement of new White House immigration announcements, it is more important now than ever to seek advice from a qualified immigration attorney or an accredited representative about your situation. Okay. Many times people are fooled by notarios or consultants promising results. We cannot promise you anything. The only thing we can promise you is quality legal services. As I told somebody once, I cannot promise you a grant from immigration because I don't work for immigration, right? I cannot promise you that this officer will do this because that's ridiculous. Nobody can do that. There are many people who are unscrupulous and are charging a lot more than attorneys. Remember, they're there for the business to get your money. They're not there to guide you and provide you the information you need to properly gain that status. There are different organizations. You can use AILA's. AILA stands for the American Immigration Lawyers Association. This is nationwide. You can find an immigration lawyer through their search at www.ailalawyer.org. You can also go to different organizations. You can go to the www.justice.gov/EOIR/recognized organizations. You could go to the California Bar Association and talk to qualified immigration attorneys. Ask questions before making any payments. Make a list of questions. Know your immigration history. Know your criminal history so that you have that ready, so that when they ask you, you can give some information, right? And report notarios who are trying to take advantage of you or your family. There have been many times, I hate to say it, where I see somebody and they said, well, this person promised me. I'm like, okay, what's the attorney's name? oh, they're not an attorney, they just have an office, they do this, they do taxes or whatnot. Well, they're not an attorney, right? And they say, yeah, but they charge me all this. You can only go, civilly against them. But the problem is many times, because a friend of a friend or a relative, oh, they got their work permit renewed or whatever it is, that's not enough. Every person means every case is different. Just like every person, every case is different. So for more information on avoiding scams, you could go to stopnotariofraud.org and protect yourself. As we've mentioned earlier, there's free consultations coming up. Through Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium, Attorney Armida Mendoza and myself will be giving free immigration consultations on October 17th. It's first come, first serve. We ask you to, through your teachers, or if you can, scan the code, join us that day on the 17th, and be ready to become a citizen. We don't only just do immigration applications for naturalization. As we mentioned earlier, we do a wide array of applications. But if you want to become a citizen, if you want to petition for somebody, if you want to find out what you can do to get legal status, or because of everything that's going on in our communities right now, if you want to know more about how you can protect yourself, if there's a way for you to legalize, come to us on the 17th. We're here to support our community, and we hope to see you then. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I practice here in Fresno, California, in the Central Valley, but I take cases throughout the state. You can call our office, schedule your appointment by phone, video conference, or in person. You can call the number listed on the screen. We'll be more than happy to help you and assist you and guide you into that next application stage for yourself.
Thank you so much, Lorena. Oh, yes, Attorney Mendoza.
Sorry. So I just wanted to also explain a little bit about my firm. So like Lorena mentioned, we are very passionate about helping our community. And we one of the main reasons why we decided to go and open our own firms is to be able to have the flexibility to be able to do that and to work on different projects without considering, funding restrictions or grant restrictions and things like that. So, we take on cases. We're passionate about the work that we do, and we're passionate about being able to represent our clients, with all the changes happening, provide that comfort, provide that guidance throughout the whole process. And so my firm offers phone, video, and video conference and in-person consultations, like Lorena's firm as well. And so, just wanted to share our information. If you or anyone needs, that guidance, or even if they started their cases already with someone else, with a notario or and they have questions, we can try to see what we can help them. Unfortunately, right now, during these times, a lot of our work has to do with damage control, where we have to kind of just try to figure out, okay, what happened? What did you file? And it's hard. It makes our work really hard. But I think that at the end of the day, the goal is to be able to provide assistance and to be able to save as much people as we can from falling into these categories of people that are being denied and put in deportation proceedings. So we're seeing it, unfortunately. We're seeing a lot of things right now, and that's why our presentation, more than anything, it doesn't intend to put everyone anxiety over the roof, or just provide fear in our communities. Is to inform us. And I think one of the main things is that information is power. And I've heard from clients themselves, like, instead of worrying, let's start preparing. Let's take precautions. Let's protect ourselves. Let's protect our loved ones in these difficult times. I think that's the best that we can do, and that's what we aim at doing. So we're here. Please use us as a resource. I've worked with, even for the teachers, I've had teachers contact me and reach out. I have a student or certain situation, like I'll try my best to provide some sort of guidance. And if I cannot fully represent the cases, there's cases of people who are, for example, in asylum proceedings. And right now, it's a very tough time to be an asylum seeker in the United States. It's a very tough time for everyone in general. But so I will provide as much support as I can, and try to, do the best that we can to help our community during this difficult time. So again, this is my information, and like Lorena, we are both, here. Please use us as a resource for our communities.
Definitely. And I think that especially for citizenship classes, is really, really important for us when we're teaching our students to be not only up to date ourselves with the information, but also to have these resources available for students so that they can inform themselves. And we are, of course, very blessed at Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium for having such amazing partners, such as, from law offices, and have their own firms, such as Attorney Armida Mendoza and Lorena Vargas. And I think that it's important that they're both bilingual, that they're both able to help our students, and that they both have long histories about helping our communities and supporting our communities. And that is especially needed at this moment with complicated situations. And of course, we always value the privacy of our students, of our community members who want to be part of the free consultations. As I mentioned before, Attorney Mendoza last year was able to provide more than 300 immigration consultations in just a few months. And she was awarded an award here from Monterey County, from the city. And so we are expanding that service not only for Salinas, but also for the whole state and the whole country. And of course, we are very blessed. And now we have the Attorney Lorena Vargas as well with us to support our students. So I want to say thank you for being part of this recording. Please do share this with all your students, with all your classes, and with the community at large. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And thank you for joining us here at Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium. And thank you, Attorney Mendoza. Thank you, Attorney Lorena Vargas, for being such big advocates of our community. Thank you.